you had been a role model for many of us, ma'am. I consider Meera ji as a disruptor in the sector, where much ahead of your time. In fact, what we are thinking now, you almost uh, thought about it almost 15 years back. That is something exceptional for this sector. In this journey of NSQF, with your livelihood experience in rural, how far we reached, and one or two guiding points that I would like to hear from you. What is that NSDC, MSDE, and MSJE should do?
I'm going to excuse myself from this question, Mallikarjuna, if you don't mind, okay? Because let me tell you how I do my work, okay? That's a better way. The EGMM, of course, I sat in the government and I had a very progressive, very supporting government to a person from the private sector who was embedded in the first skilling mission of the government. I think the good thing was that the government was very progressive. They thought, hey, the kids' ambitions are different from the parents. A farmer's kid doesn't want to be a farmer, a weaver's kid doesn't want to be a weaver. And they took a private sector person like me and put me as the head of the mission. For me, it was fun because I love doing things new. And there was no one who done such work before. So there were no cut and paste models. Okay. You had to really think about it yourself. You had to think fresh. And you could use some of your networks which you had. So I think that was a phenomenal experience for me to leverage. So I learned several lessons being embedded in the government. And those lessons, after Bihar, after the World Bank, after going back to Ramdorai, I realized that my next phase of life, Mallikarjun, should be to work in the most vulnerable space, because I knew that that's going to be the next few years I'll devote to that area. So after thinking deeply, at that point of time, 10 years back, when I saw the canvas really was, there were one or two organizations in Bangalore who were working with urban youth, because the IT sector used to take people with disabilities. But the numbers were so incredibly small because they were looking only at the urban, youth for the IT sector. So in a year, if you would see, the organizations were doing barely about maybe 25 to 30 placements. So I said, hey, this is an opportunity. And we entered, looking at the rural youth, because I said, I know the rural and tribal best, and that's anyway what Bharat needs. I keep one eye on markets, okay, what's happening in the markets. I keep my other eye on the community. And I just work on these two till I build a model for scale, till I build a model where the government actually cannot ignore me because I've built a model for scale. So I did that with the EGMM, and now, Youth4Jobs, no one can ignore, because we become the largest in South Asia. So the work is already challenging enough. And luckily for countries like India, where there are people who are transparent, people like us who are squeaky transparent in not just our money, but in every single act which we do. I think you get a certain kind of funder who respects you, and they fund you for whatever you want. So I don't need government funds. I don't need to go through the hassles of accessing, which others, know how to do it, so they manage. So luckily, I think we have, it's really super to work in India, where you can actually tell the government, great, I think you bring other competencies and we can do a non-financial agreement with you. And that's the way we work with all the governments.
Congratulations on the Zero project. I think I was more curious. Again, you are thinking 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead, talking about College Connect. After this rural journey, I was more curious to understand, because this is what we realized during our initial deep study also. The most neglected lot was where people are studying and nobody was capturing. So, as a visionary, already you got into that segment. I would like to hear more about that, ma'am.
Yeah, the College Connect is a more recent program, and that we began And my thinking was that educated youth with disabilities don't need us. Okay, they have an education, so why should we support them? So we began with the rural, less educated youth. But what happened, Malikarjuna, is companies called us and they would say, because our less educated program is so big, we are pan India, we are in Jammu, Kashmir, we are everywhere. So people started asking, saying, give us educated. And I kept saying, you take it from others. And they were saying, where are the others? Okay. So I said, okay, let's put a program together. And our funder, when I put a template of the program, our funder told us, saying that, listen, many have tried this program and they failed. It's very complex. So I said, you give it to us, let's try. I think the big difference we brought in the sector is that, unlike others who work from the outside, we embedded ourselves into colleges. Okay. So we work very closely with colleges, and each time we saw a gap, we addressed those. So, for example, now we set up what is called the Smart Inclusion Centers in colleges, where we work with the educators, we work with the college management and everyone, telling them a whole range of things, right from um, what to do, what not to do, to make them all disabled friendly. We work in the nearby schools to make sure that kids don't drop out and they get into higher education. Okay, because that's a big, the act mandates a 5% reservation of seats. Reality we saw in many states is not even 4%, 0.4%. Okay. So it's a very, very bleak scenario. And therefore, if you want to, if the IT sector, the finance sector, and the others say we want youth who are educated, first of all, the youth who are in education are not fit. Okay, because of the huge gap between our education system and jobs. Okay, and second is the youth are so few in number, so you have to increase that pipeline, and that's what we are doing in our College Connect program.
So it's a pan India program, ma'am?
No, it's only metro based.
Metro based. Okay, great.
But
So
what we do is, because we have the other program which is pan India, whenever necessity comes, then we are able to, leverage and give a company whatever they need.
okay. If any college or university would like to partner with you, what is that they need to do?
They approach us, and then we have a process. We talk to them, you know, whatever they need, and then we tell them what our services are, and then we begin working with them.
Oh, great, ma'am. So just to share, ma'am, like as a pilot, we started in Delhi NCR, this Divyangjan Incubation Center, wherein what we realized, I'm a JNU alumni, so I realized the equal opportunity. I mean, we were during those days set up this equal opportunity office, and there is a big mandate, but somewhere these equal opportunity offices in the colleges and university never got activated and linked to uh, the type of guidance that they need to provide. So what we decided and piloting is to tying up with some of the universities and colleges and making these as a spoke centers. When a candidate enters into the campus itself, why can't we capture them, and maybe 2 to 3 years time we'll have, so that they can go through a process, and then they will understand if they want employment they can get into that segment, or if they're looking for some self-employment opportunities, they can understand whether they can go ahead or not, and then they can take the thing. So in that context, I think what you are doing is something exceptional. I think that is a need of the hour. I think born in Chennai, settled in Hyderabad, being from a economist family, you are talking about market lens is something which really excites me whenever I hear your video or talk. And it is a very person centered, ability centered approach that you talk about. And you also talked about, like any social entrepreneur picks up the most challenging task, that is the rural youth, which even the governments would not like to get into because they are not able to offer them anything. So this creating an ecosystem, economic ecosystem. In your vision, ma'am, in Youth for Job, what all it does it stops only with employment, or livelihood, micro enterprises, or income generation, or something much beyond that? Collectivization of these people, is that also part of Youth for Jobs journey, ma'am? I was more curious to know.
Yeah, I think, Mallikarjun, what is this is that everything has to evolve. In all my work, you'll see that I don't start anything just for the sake of starting. One leads to the other. We did less educated. The company started asking for educated, so we moved into educated. So it's all a journey, step by step journey. So, to your question, do I look at just jobs or not? The answer is this. Um, when COVID came, we were the first to launch our online program for the lesser educated and even for the educated, actually. What we realized is that we had people from very remote areas who were actually logging in. Okay, we had young women, we had young widows, and even if they are aspirational, many of them really cannot move to the aspirational jobs because of their own limitations. So that therefore has set us on a path of understanding the local jobs and the MSMEs better. In fact, we've just mounted a major study on that. Uh, um, so, right now, what we are doing is we are looking closely at local markets, at micro enterprises, okay, hand holding, technology solutions. So, in the future, we are betting on two things: technology on one side and the community on the other. Okay, so I think this combination of the two will make sure that the kind of impact which we make for PwDs will possibly be of a global level.
Okay, okay. Ma'am, also, you might be already knowing about IDT. So we have a group in Anantapur of 400 women with
Yeah, yeah, of
disabilities.
course. They are we're
So
very close friends.
great, ma'am. So as part of Fated Movement, some model has been created there. Now the first woman producer company has been formed in the name of AME, and through exports they could generate something, and now they are expanding to the local market. So several such models exist within fair trade. The way that your career has been and the field that you have chosen, uh, it is something highly inspiring. Like, what incident, one thing I wanted to personally get inspired to know, once you decided to get into rural, what is that motivated, ma'am? Is it a purpose of life, or is it an
Mhm.
incident, or is it something else that while you are working with World
No, no,
Bank or
I don't
something?
have any incident. For example, disability, that's the most common question I get asked, saying,
Correct.
do I have anyone with disability in my family? I actually don't. I think it's actually a purpose. And for me, the purpose is that I know that if I give a job to a member of the family, the entire family comes out of poverty. In disability, I just can't tell you if I go to any of my places where the centers are, they all call me the Mother Teresa of jobs. And they all come because for disability, it's like magic, you see. That's why I just don't go out because I don't want these kinds of adulation. This is a teamwork. It's not mine. The whole team does it. I'm just the face of it, and I may give the strategy, and I work 24/7, of course. But the point is that to a disabled, it's really to girls and all. It's like magic. The parents, I can't tell you how much every parent, Malikarjun, worries what will happen to their child when, especially if it's a girl, when they're getting older. And they tell minister also this, saying that I always used to worry other siblings don't want to take care of this child, they don't want to feed, what will happen? And then these people came and they gave a job. And these kids are also, unlike the non-disabled, there's a connection with the mother. So they'll always support, especially when you're poor. So every day I get these stories. Every day we have an inspiring, we don't bother to share. It just, I think, energizes me and my team to keep going on the path, because one thing we know for certain, that we are doing something right, okay, and we are impacting lives. So we just keep moving forward. So everyone understands it and uses it. But you're absolutely right. I think in the PwD system, the biggest challenge is the fact that the government gives so much of freebies that many of them actually take it as a right. You know, when we began, I can tell you, um, they really used to take everything as a right. And if a company told someone you were not doing the right thing, they would behave like an activist in the company, okay? Which means that the company's opinion of hiring a youth with disability could permanently actually get lost, because the company will say, okay, these guys are all activists. So I think at the beginning we had a lot of these kind of issues which would keep cropping up constantly. But now I think, we also know how to answer these questions. We know how to handle these grassroots community issues. Not all, because it's still a journey. But I think some of them we do know, and therefore we are able to handle quite a bit of the challenges. In COVID, we did so well. We were one of the few. Our funders just love us because of that. Because when they had to report to their board, almost every NGO they were funding said they can't do placements. But we continued our placements even in the height of the COVID. We did so well with our placements. So I think these are small things, and I, never monitor my team for the targets. Very rarely I do. I mostly only look at values, okay? And, is the passion there? Is there empathy there? What is their treatment towards the PwDs? What are the kind of words they're using? I don't say, have you done a 60% placements? No, I don't ask that question. Do they have a passion? Then I ask them always, what is our mantra? Okay. So these are kind of things which I ask them, because it's very hard to, if you have that passion, that's one thing. But as you asked, how do you disseminate it down the line? And today I have 190 people working for me, okay, who are at different levels, okay, and most of them are very simple. In fact, many of them don't even speak English well, which is so important, for India. But yeah, so it's interesting. I think the biggest challenge a leader has is that how do you make your passion, be disseminated right to the last worker. And uh, and and that is also by example, because if anyone breaks for example, the rules and the values which are important, then we are really very strict about it. So I think by example people understand. And then, the other thing I must tell you, Mallikarjun, is that when people know what you stand for, only those kind of partners will come to you. Though, either apply for a job to you or come to you also. The others don't, which is very good. It makes it an easier work for me to, to live in and to forge my partnerships.